YouTube, how we doing? It's Caden again. Today's video is going to be about the time that I almost died cutting weight. A little bit of some context and some exposition before we get into it. This was while I was still training at the MMA lab. This happened in around April of 2023. I was cutting weight for a tournament called the USMTO, or the US Muay Thai Open. The weight class I had to make was 120 pounds to 130 pounds. Now, I could weigh within that entire 10-pound scale. At the time, I walked around probably around 155, something like that, a little heavier for where I'd like to be if I was cutting that low. But I knew I had to make 130 pounds even. I couldn't be 0.1 over. I couldn't be 0.2 over. I didn't have a pound allowance. So I knew that I had quite a big, unfortunate weight cut ahead of me. So I kind of got into it. Firstly, I'll let you know how many days I had to cut the weight. I had around 2.5 weeks before the fight to cut the weight. And now a little bit of exposition about the USMTO is that it is a multi-day tournament where if I made it to the finals, so let's say the USMTO would have their day 1, their day 2, and then their day 3 would usually be for all of the title fights and their finals, right? The first day, before the actual tournament day, was the day before, you go, you check in, you give your medicals, and you go and you weigh in. Let's say your bracket is rather small. You would maybe have to fight once or twice within that 2-day period. And then again, if you made it to the finals, you would have to weigh in again at the exact same weight that you weighed in previously. Now, that causes a sort of a dilemma when you have people cutting an absurd amount of weight to fight, and then once they make the weight, they go and they eat, and they put back on 10 to 15 pounds. A lot of people I saw when they did these tournaments, if they made it to the finals, a lot of people didn't show up to their final bout because they were not going to cut weight again within a 2-day period. And I absolutely agree with that. If I made it to the finals, I wouldn't have done that shit either. But that's just a little exposition for how the tournament worked. Now, for my personal weight cut, again, I started at 155 pounds and I had to get to 130 pounds even. I started very, very easy by lowering my calorie intake and not eating as much. I wouldn't be eating like your traditional clean meals. I would still be eating salt. I would still be eating sugars, simple carbs before the gym, just so I had a little bit of energy to get me through my sessions. I noticed that a couple days into lowering my calories, my weight hadn't really dropped. So I said, okay, maybe I have to cut back my calories a little bit more. And that's what I did. So I was in about a 750 calorie deficit, which is still pretty large. A lot of the time they recommend a 500 calorie deficit, so I bumped it up another 250. What that only allowed me to do was eat a small snack or a small portion before I went to the gym, and then I could have a decent sized dinner before I went to bed. That's what I did for the next 2 weeks. I stayed in that 750 calorie deficit. I would basically only eat twice a day, and the first time that I ate would really only be very, very small rice cakes, honey, something just to kind of get me feeling like I had a little bit more energy than I actually did when I went to go train. At the MMA lab 4 times a week, and I would do 2 classes each time I'd go. I wasn't on their pro team, I was on their amateur team, so on Saturdays, I would show up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we'd spar and we'd do our hard rounds then until about 8 in the morning, and then I had 3 other days throughout the week that I'd go and I'd train and I'd do my other classes. Fast forward to about a week before the fight. This is what we consider fight week. I was still eating in a pretty heavy deficit. I did not really feel like I had a ton of energy. I really didn't do anything outside of training. At this point, I was working as a coach at the UFC gym, and I was also working as a coach at another smaller like kickboxing fitness studio. So I'd go train, I'd get home, and then I'd go coach my classes, and I'd come back home, and I really didn't have any energy left for anything else really for this last week. I really didn't even have energy to go teach my classes, but I still went and I showed up anyway. Flash forward a couple days before my actual weight cut, which was on Thursday before the Saturday fight, right? So that Wednesday, I was about 11 to 12 pounds over what I had to be. So I was sitting right about 141, 142, depending on what I had eaten that night. Again, I did not feel good. I felt really, really, really bad, really weak, had no energy, and just slept awful. It honestly, a lot of really, really bad weight cuts kind of start with you not being able to sleep, start with you having no energy. And this happens all the time, but you can really tell when it's a bad weight cut that all of these things are amplified. They start way earlier than they should. Weight cut day comes around. To cut weight, a lot of fighters, UFC fighters in general, will use a method called water loading and a water cut. So basically what this does is you intake so much water, ideally 2 gallons on Sunday through Tuesday, and then you start tapering off your water right before your cut. What this is doing is it's flushing out all of the sodium and different minerals in your blood that hold on to water so that you're able to lose weight through water faster and your body isn't holding on to as much water. B, what this does is it's tricking your body into thinking that you're severely overhydrated and you're going to continue to keep pissing, sweating at a very high rate that is honestly uncomfortable. When you drink that much water, I think at this point on Sunday, I drank nearly 3 gallons of water. And the only thing that plays in your head is, oh my God, I hate water. I never want to drink water again in my life. It really is just miserable. I mean, miserable is probably not even a good word to describe it. It fucking sucks. That is what we call the water load process. So you drink all of this water, you're tricking your body into thinking that you're overhydrated. Thus, your body is not going to hold on to as much water as, let's say, if you were to just not do this and then go and try and cut the weight. So that Thursday rolls around, Thursday night. I'm at my partner's house. It's time to get into the bath. So this is another method that is not the sauna, not sitting in the sauna or hitting pads or running in a sweatsuit, because I like to do my weight cuts very passively. I don't like expending a ton of energy that I don't have losing weight when I could just A, sit in the sauna, or B, sit in the bath. So for this time, I decided to do the bath method. Now, this is where you basically just fill up a tub with pretty hot water. I'd say around 105 degrees to about 110 is what you're aiming for, just so that when you're sitting in the bath, you're constantly sweating into the water. Now, I also used Abilene, or what is basically like Vaseline. It clogs your pores and it allows you not to disperse heat throughout your body as easily, so thus making you sweat more. Weight cut starts. The first round of weight cuts is getting into the bath, putting all the Abilene on, and sitting there for 15 minutes. So I'm already not feeling good. I'm already honestly pretty lightheaded when I stand up. So I have 12 pounds to cut, and I knew this was going to be absolutely fucking awful. I get into the bath, and within about 5 minutes, I start profusely sweating, like a ton of sweat. And so I'm just sitting there. My partner's there with me. She's making sure I'm all right. We're just listening to music, kind of talking back and forth. I am absolutely miserable. This is honestly probably one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my life. So the 15 minutes goes by. I get out of the tub, I dry off, and it's time to check to see how much I weigh. Now, when I get out of the tub, I don't immediately stand up. This is something that a lot of fighters will tell you too, is when you've been sitting or laying somewhere for too long and you're cutting weight, the worst thing you can do is stand up very fast, because the blood in your body and the way that your heart is pumping to keep your body circulating blood, if you stand up too fast, you're going to pass out, you're going to faint. So I got out of the tub really slow. I stood up and I still got lightheaded. I did this within, 4 minutes. It took me 4 minutes to get out of the bath, and I still got lightheaded when I stood up. I get out, I check my weight, and thank God, I don't know how, I still haven't done this to this day. I think it was just how much water I had drank, but I had lost 6 pounds in that 15 minutes. This will contribute to me feeling like shit in the fight later, just because I didn't really eat anything this day. So no energy, I'm not drinking any water anymore, and now I'm cutting the weight for the fight. I have 6 pounds left to go. I'm gonna do the bath one more time. I get back into the bath, same thing. I feel fucking miserable. I'm in the bath, I'm sweating. I feel like this is never going to end. And I get to around 10 minutes in the second bath, and I honestly just can't take it anymore. So I get out and I sit there for a bit, and I'm just honestly kind of at my rock bottom at this point. I'm like, I'm not gonna get this fucking weight off. This is gonna be fucking miserable. I'm not gonna be able to fight. I'm gonna let my team down. All this shit's going through my head. I get out and I check my weight, and I had lost 2 more pounds. So within about 30 minutes to an hour, I had lost 8 pounds, which I think is roughly 6% of my body weight or something like that. I didn't graduate very, very high in math, so apologize if that's wrong. That's just my estimate. And I was skin and bones. For reference, I'm about 5'11", 6 foot, and I walk around at 155 pounds. So I'm by no means some big brolic dude, and cutting this weight only made me skinnier, made me more frail. So I go to bed that night, and when I say this is the worst sleep I've ever got in my life, it truly was the worst sleep I had ever got in my life. I had cut so much weight to the point where every time my heart beat, I could feel the blood go to every extremity in my body. And I could also feel the thud of my heart beating in my chest. It is not a good feeling at all. And it honestly scared the fucking shit out of me. Knowing this, knowing I still have to wake up and cut 4 more pounds, I try to get as much sleep as possible. I try to lay down. I just hear my heart thumping in my ears. I hear nothing else going on but my own heartbeat in my ears. And I don't know why, for some reason, hearing my own heartbeat makes me very uncomfortable. So needless to say, I didn't sleep very well that night. I think I got maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep. I wake up, like I said, the previous day I had felt like shit. Today I woke up and I felt like I was a ghost of myself. Weigh-ins were at around 1 p.m. and I still had 4 pounds to cut. What I did is I put my sauna suit on, I put my hoodie on, and I went to the EOS, and I'm like, I'm just going to sweat this 4 pounds out in the sauna. I'm not going to do the bath because the bath was making me feel very lightheaded, very dizzy every time I got out, and I didn't want to faint in my partner's house and cause a whole scene. So I went to the closest EOS. I have sweats. I have my socks tucked into my sweats. I have my shoes. I have my sweatsuit on. I have my hoodie tucked into my pants. I have my hood tied up. And I go into the sauna and I sit there for 15 minutes. At first, it was honestly kind of pleasant because I was so cold. I didn't have any fat on my body. So I was very, very cold being just in a normal environment because I had no heat. So when I got in the sauna, it was actually kind of pleasant because it was so hot. I'm like, oh my God, my body's going to warm up. After about 5 minutes, I started to sweat, and it was fucking miserable again, as we've come to kind of understand cutting weight is not fun. But the water and the sweat is actually still going at a good rate. A lot of people say if you stop sweating when you're trying to cut weight, that is a horrible sign, and you should stop immediately and go see a medical professional because you could die from that. You absolutely can die from cutting weight. It's the only thing in the sport that has killed more people than the actual fighting. Honest with you guys, a lot of people haven't died from actually fighting. The main killer of any fighter, combat sports athlete, is the weight cut because they try to do too much. I go and I'm sweating, and after the first 15 minutes, I get out and I check on the scale. I'm still 2.5 pounds over. And that to me just felt like a fucking eternity. That felt like it was going to be so hard to do. But nonetheless, I still had about an hour or two before I had to go to weigh in. So I'm like, I'm gonna fucking do as much as I can. There was another dude in the sauna, so if I faint in this sauna, let's hope to God that he gets somebody and gets me out of this sauna so I don't die. Sit out of the sauna for about 10 minutes just to kind of cool down and not overheat myself, because that's also another thing is when you're cutting weight, it's very hard for your body to regulate temperature up and down. A lot of these cases of people fainting or going into shock or having a heart attack is due to overheating. So I gave my body some time. Obviously, still didn't feel good at all, and I went back into the sauna. Immediately within the first 2 minutes of being in the sauna, I was already sweating again, so I knew that I had definitely some more weight that I could lose, and that was a good sign to me. So no matter how bad I felt, no matter how shitty I felt, I knew that it was possible if I just stayed in here. So the next 15 minutes goes by, I get out of the sauna. I am a zombie, dude. I have no energy. I barely can walk on my 2 feet out of the sauna. I take all my clothes off. I get on the scale, and the scale reads 130.4. And to my my disheartenment, I'm like, fuck, I still have 0.4 to cut in this sauna. I want to say that this was a very, very bad idea because my body was still hot and still sweating even though I wasn't in the sauna. So it's very possible that I could have lost the 400 grams or so just by being out of the sauna. I decided to get back into the sauna for 5 more minutes. I sat, I still felt like shit. I knew it wasn't going to be as long, and I just had to sit there for 5 minutes. So I did, and when I got back out, I was 130.0. I was literally exactly on weight. I'm very happy, but also very, very, very dehydrated, very not well in this current state that I'm at. I did it good. I had only about an hour before weigh-in, so I'm not dehydrated for multiple hours at a time in this state. I go back home to my girlfriend's house, and she, being the angel that she is, drives me to weigh-ins, and I have all of my rehydration snacks and food and liquids. So we make it over there. I get to the weigh-ins. I give the doctor my medicals. He checks over them. He signs off on them. And then I go to the weigh-in table. The weigh-in table is basically just where 3 of the commission members are there. I give them my paperwork. They sign off on it. And then they let me get on the scale. I get on the scale. And to my surprise, I was a pound under. I was 129.2 pounds. Basically, what that told me is that the last 5 minutes I went into the sauna was completely unnecessary, and I didn't need to do that at all, which is a good lesson to learn. Obviously, I took this into future weight cuts, and, knowing how my body worked through these mistakes and these lessons helps me become more experienced, and it helps me do things correctly. I weigh in, I'm completely fine, and I start rehydrating. My rehydration protocol is a gallon of water. You pour about 12 ounces out. You replace that with coconut water. You need half of a squeezed lemon, about a couple tablespoons of pink Himalayan salt, and I'd say probably about a teaspoon, maybe a couple teaspoons of honey. And so basically what that is those are all of the sugars and minerals that your body needs to rehydrate and to hold on to water. You got to do this very slow, and this is something, again, that I learned later on through doing this multiple times over, is you have to be slow with your fluid intake because your stomach hasn't digested or had anything in it in such a long time that it's almost so dry that it can't digest certain things. So the reintroduction of water and liquids is almost like a kickstart to your stomach so that you can start digesting things, you can start making piss, you can start eating so that your body will hold on to weight. This obviously wasn't something that I knew at the time, so I start chugging my water, and it's the greatest feeling on earth, right? You go from absolutely fucking hating water, never ever wanting to see a bottle of water or any water in your life because of how much you're drinking, to 24 hours later, when you don't have any water, the only thing that you can think about, not even food, is just having a sip of water. It is the most craziest 180 turn of psychology ever. And I always, because it happens every time, I just think it's so fascinating how the brain kind of interprets these sort of things. So I start rehydrating, and I finish this gallon of water, honestly, within about 30 to 45 minutes. You're supposed to sip it slowly over the course of like 2 to 3 hours. I said, fuck that shit. And so I finished my gallon of water. I had 2 Pedialytes, and I had a liquid IV. So that all together, if you were to weigh that, should be about 10 pounds. So I get home, and I honestly don't feel too bad. I feel pretty good. I have water in my system, and I go with my girlfriend to go eat. Now, I don't think I could have chose a worse option to go and refuel myself than going to McDonald's, but that's exactly what I did. I got 2 double quarter pounders. I got a large fry. I got a McFrappe fucking Frappuccino and a Dr. Pepper. And let me tell you, I also got a 10-piece nugget as well. Let's not forget that. So, a lot of food, way too fast, and the lowest quality food that I could have fucking chosen. But I ate it. It was absolutely amazing. I felt incredible. But then this brings me to fight day. Now, I go to sleep that night, and I'm about 145 pounds. So I've put on 15 pounds since that morning. So I go to sleep. I have a pretty decent night's sleep before my fight the next day. Very, very excited. I'm very nervous. There's a bunch of emotions that go on when you reach your fight day. But I noticed when I woke up, I had very, very bad stomach pains. Who would have guessed I had really, really bad stomach pains? So I go, I have a cup of coffee, and that just kind of opens the floodgates to me basically sitting on the toilet for an hour or two, just shitting my brains out. I want you guys to remember, I said last night I went to bed at around 145 pounds. After this 2 hour period, or this 2 hour battle I had on the toilet, I was 137 pounds. So everything I had ate basically did not mean anything because my body did not accept it. Now, this is an unfortunate thing that happens when you drink too fast and when you eat too fast after cutting weight. This is a lesson I've learned multiple times over, making the same mistake. And it's one that I no longer make, but it's one that I definitely want to share because it severely affected my performance during the fight. I get to the venue, I have all my stuff. Obviously, very, very nervous, very anxious. I couldn't be more than 140 pounds going into this fight. I start getting my hands wrapped. The nerves start creeping in, creeping up, and I just put my headphones in, and I'm getting ready for the fight. I'm talking to my teammates, I'm talking to my coaches, I'm talking to just everybody, trying to keep my own, head on a swivel. So it's time to glove up. I have my hands wrapped. The commission comes over, puts my gloves on, wraps my hands, and I'm fighting within, the next 10 or 15 minutes. The two bouts ahead of me are going on right now. So it's my turn to walk on down into the venue and wait for my fight. I have to go check in with another member of the commission. And I'm sitting there waiting in my full gear, and I am just so fucking nervous. And I'm not nervous necessarily about the fight. I'm nervous about how I'm going to perform. I'm nervous that my body is not going to be able to perform, and it's not going to be able to do the things that I do in training because of the horrific, basically battle with the toilet I had that morning. And that's constantly playing in my head. I get into the fight, and I'm fighting a kid. Funny enough, it's his first amateur fight. I think this is my fourth amateur fight. This is my last fight at the MMA lab. I get in there, and the kid is very kick heavy. He's a southpaw, and he loves using his front leg as a teep, as a side kick, and he honestly is kicking the shit out of me. So in my head, I knew I had better boxing, and I'm like, I'm just going to push him into the corner, and I'm going to box him up in the corner. So first round, he kicks me. I get him into the corner for a little bit. He circles out. I think he wins that first round. Round two comes, and he's still doing the same thing. He's circling around, throwing some kicks, throwing some leg kicks, not really throwing too many punches. I was the one with better boxing in that fight. So I tried to push forward. I tried to get close to him so I could land my jab, land my cross. It honestly, it's just not working. Can't get him into the corner. He's zigzagging left and right, really not letting me back him up in a straight line into the corner. The punch comes that I don't see. He threw a kick, and before his kick hit the ground, he threw a right hand almost like a Superman punch. And I didn't see this, and I honestly didn't remember, but this dropped me. My glove had hit the ground, and the ref comes up. He's like, 1, 2. And then I start arguing with the guy. I'm like, I didn't go down. I slipped. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But I refocus. I get back into the fight. There was about 10 seconds left. There was an exchange, and then we both go to our corners. My corner is telling me that I have to go forward. I have to throw jabs, and I have to beat this kid right here. I have to basically go knock him out. And so that kind of lights a fire under my butt. I go out in the third round. All hell breaks loose. I'm fucking trying to finish this kid. He's just kind of zigzagging back and forth, and I can't really find him. And then the fight ends. They announce him as the winner. I'm obviously the loser. I get out. I am out of the tournament for that period. That basically was the whole experience. That was the worst weight cut I've ever experienced in my entire life. That was the worst I've ever felt before a fight. But the thing is, even though I felt that bad, even though I did not feel like I would be able to perform how I should, I still got in there. I still made the weight. I got in there and I fought, and I did as best as I could for that day. Not harping on myself or anything. I lost the fight. That's what happens in the sport. There's a winner, there's a loser. But it was a very, very good learning lesson on A, how to cut weight, B, what not to do when you refuel, and it was just a great experience. So again, a lot of these people will say, oh, well, only winning matters. And yes, winning does matter a lot, especially in my sport. But if you can't understand how to take a loss and you can't learn from the lessons from taking a loss, you're never going to grow as a fighter. That is just about the end of today's video. I appreciate you guys. If you like the content, please let me know. Leave a comment. like the video, subscribe, send it to some of your friends if you guys are fighters. Share this story. Maybe you have had a horrible weight cut and you would like to share your experience. Please share it in the comment section below. If you guys want to talk to me personally, I do have a Discord. The link is in the description. Would love to talk to some of you guys, so join the Discord. Other than that, hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and thank you so much for watching. My name is Caden, and I will catch you in the next one. Deuces.